and good afternoon on a beautiful, sunny but chilly day, almost in Philadelphia. I'm Char Nolan, one of the chef instructors here at Rouxbe, and I am very happy to be with everyone today. We've got some great questions, and I also have a couple of things that come to mind when I'm reading your assignments. And so I thought I would share a couple of quick hacks with you that would also just be fun. We'll start off by letting everyone know that it is Black History Month, and perhaps some of you read on our Instagram at Ruby Plants that we featured a very nice post about Bryant Terry, who is an East Bay based chef educator, author, um, community activist, and an all around really nice person. This is one of my favorite books of his, Afro Vegan. And it's not an oil free cookbook, but so many of the recipes taste absolutely delicious without oil. And my Bryant Terry story is actually a fun one. It yielded a wonderful article on a website here, a food website here in Pennsylvania. And it was in 2014, and he was coming to Philadelphia to promote his then new book. He's written two more since then. And he needed a ride from the train station to the venue that I happened to be going to. And a friend called and said, "Hey, would you mind picking up Bryant Terry at the 30th Street station?" And there I stood with a sign that said, "Mr. Bryant Terry," like this. And lo and behold, I became his event chauffeur. And when we were riding in the car, my wheels were turning, and I thought this would be such a great article. So not only did I drive him to the venue and then drive him to the Airbnb that he was staying at, the next day, very early in the morning, I went back to the Airbnb and took him to the airport. And I will just say this, that aside from being just a wonderful person, and if you have the chance to read this book, the introduction includes an absolutely beautiful, beautiful response from Alice Waters. And she is one of his idols. So get the book. It's also a really good read culturally and culinarily. So if you are into exposing your book collection, and we have posted a wonderful, wonderful link to a bookstore in the Pacific Northwest called Book Larder, which has a wonderful, wonderful montage of about 16 books that you might be interested in for learning more about Black History Month and culinary beliefs and other important things like that. But this is one of my favorite books. Sometimes I just read it for fun. So that being said, it happens to also be, whoops, it also happens to be Heart Health Month. And many of you know that I am a big fan of Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr. from the Cleveland Clinic. This was his first book written in 2009. And the 150 recipes were written by Ann Cryle Esselstyn. And when you read this book, aside from the good science that is in it, um, you see how far we have come in about 15 years in terms of there being more awareness to what plant-based foods are. We also see a lot of manufacturing of plant-based foods. Some are good, some are not. This is one of my favorite books. And the accompanying cookbook is by Ann Cryle Esselstyn again and Jane Esselstyn, their daughter, who also happens to be their neighbor. And I've had this book since 2014, and as you can see, it's pretty worn out. It will open up easily to today's National Muffin Day. So there we go on the floor. But today's National Muffin Day, and Jane has a great recipe for jalapeno and salsa corn muffins. And I can tell you that Jane and I have often stood together making 25 dozen of those muffins for events. It's a great recipe. It has lots of delicious things in it. So Heart Health Month, we've been posting things on social media that you might be interested in. And along with that is this other book that I love for heart health is Be a Plant-Based Woman Warrior. and also by Jane and Anne. And um, there's a little blurb about me in this book. So I say get the book, not for that, but because of the recipes, and the content is just so beautifully written. So, with that said, I think that we may be ready to begin some of the questions that we have today. And Patrick, I see, put the link up. Thank you for doing that, Patrick. Um, Here's someone who received a set of Staub cookware. Now, Staub is similar to Le Creuset. It's cast iron, and then it has an enamel coating to it. And this is from Natalie. Hello, Natalie. Um, she read the instructions to the cookware, which is great. And it said that she must absolutely, absolutely use oil. Now, I have some Le Creuset that's 40 years old. And behind me, I have some imitation that works just as well. And I've been cooking without oil for almost 15 years, and nothing has happened to my pots. What you may be referring to is that when you first get these pans, it's really a good idea to wash them with a little bit of oil so that you can condition the lining of the pan. So I don't cook with oil. What I make in my pots are usually soups and stews, and I steam things and make lots of things, but I don't use oil, and nothing is going to happen to the interior of your pan. So my suggestion is, I don't know how many pots and pans were in your set, but that you might want to try using one pot at a time and see how, how that, oops, sorry, how that works for you. So that is my suggestion about that. And I hope you have fun cooking with them, because um, they're beautiful pots and pans, and very heavy. I also always say to people, if you're cooking with them, make sure that you have your shoes on. And I know this sounds silly, but you do not want the top to fall on your foot, and you do not want to break a toe. And I'm being quite serious about that. I've read where people have been cooking without shoes and dropped a pot or a pan and then ended up with some fractured fingers and things like that. So um, very good question. Very, very good. Those were my tips. The next one comes from Mary A., who wants to know about cooking whole foods, especially specific to grains. So, are they still whole when they are ground? Yes, they become unwhole when they are heavily processed. So, I wanted to give you an example, because sometimes when I'm reading your assignments, I see where people will say, I went to grind some spices in my coffee machine, my coffee grinder, and the herbs ended up tasting or smelling like coffee. So, what you're going to do is you have, excuse me, this is your immersion, whoops, excuse me for 1 second. There we go. Sorry about that. This is the bottom to your immersion blender. And you're going to take some whole grains like these. These are hemp seeds, chia, and flax. And you're going to put them in here. Now, what I do when I do this is I cover the holes up with tape. And then what happens is that you're just going to hold it this way with the immersion blender. And after about a minute, what will happen is that you'll get this beautifully ground uh, mixture of your grains. So 2 tablespoons will fit in here. And then what you have to do after that, most importantly, left an important step out, is you've got to cover it with a saran wrap or that Glad sticky wrap or whatever it is that you like to use, but they come out beautifully. And then the other beauty of this is that you can put this in the dishwasher or wash it by hand, and it won't have any coffee oil flavor to it. So um, that's the answer to my question. And so, no, as long as they still remain whole, as these are, um, we want things that are fibrous, and that still remains fibrous for you. So I hope that that is helpful to you. Um, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty, so give me 1 minute here. Hold on for a half a second. There we go, back in action. Okay. This is from Cindy E. Hi, Cindy. How are you today? What is the best way to cook non-oil, freshly grated hash browns? You have come to the right person. Okay. Now, the rest of your question is, should you cook them oven or stovetop? And I say neither. And that's because you're going to use a waffle iron. And when I got my waffle iron like 100 years ago, I conditioned it with oil because you want to give it that first run. And these come out beautifully. They stay together. You don't need oil. But my first recommendation to you is that after you grate the potatoes, you want to squeeze out all of the liquid that is in the potato, because otherwise they're going to come out like mushy and not delicious. So I will also let you know that for this purpose, I used the Walmart brand of hash browns because there's no salt in them and there are no preservatives. Other brands do have that kind of those kinds of ingredients in them. So what I do is I even when I use fresh potatoes, I make a bunch of them in advance. I layer them with parchment paper and keep them in the freezer. And when it's time to eat them, I stick them in the toaster and they come out beautifully crispy. You can also put them in the air fryer in this state. And also, Cindy, you can put them in the air fryer depending upon what brand of air fryer you have. But draining the potatoes is the most important thing for you to do. So I hope that that was helpful. Great question. And, waffle iron can be used for so many things. I use it as a panini grill. I use it to make waffles, of course. But sometimes if I have leftover muffin mix, I'll throw them into the waffle iron and make a waffle and then put them in the freezer. So be true to your waffle iron, show it a little bit of love. Wonderful question. Thank you so much. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say, we have a question coming up about salt, but I did want to say one thing, that a lot of people seem to like ketchup a lot. And ketchup is a very high sodium food for its little quantity. Maybe there's 160 milligrams of sodium in a teaspoon. So a better way to make that is, I had a leftover jam and I put in an equal amount of tomato paste. This is Muir Glen. It has 25 milligrams of sodium in it. And what happens is that you mix the two together, equal amounts of each. I like to add a little garlic powder and a little bit of vinegar, and it makes a really beautiful, a really beautiful ketchup for you to serve. So if you're looking for a delicious ketchup, there's a way to go. And if you're looking to cut back on your sodium, also using a ketchup that you would make yourself. One more thing about ketchup. Um, most ketchups, most commercial ketchups, will have high fructose corn syrup, although I do notice that the popular American brand Heinz now makes a no sugar added. However, it still has salt in it. So try making your own. It's delicious. It's fun. You've got a leftover jar of fruit conserve. You don't know what to do with it. Bingo bango, a little tomato paste, some garlic powder, a little drop of vinegar, whip, 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 taste, taste, taste. And then instead of relying on a recipe, rely on your own flavor response, because that's how you develop even better cooking skills in the kitchen. So if you ask me for a recipe for this, I would probably say, I don't know, it just tastes good, but equal amounts of each, and then maybe a teaspoon of your favorite kind of vinegar and garlic powder. And I would say about a quarter of a teaspoon, but to your taste. And it'll last for up to 5 days in your refrigerator. Make it in small amounts. And so you've got a delicious dish here, but it doesn't offend your body's homeostasis with so much added salt to it. So there is that. Thank you, Cindy. I hope that that was a good response to you. Oh dear. The next one is from Fran C. We only know one Fran C, and that's Fran Costigan, who's the director of our Essential Vegan Desserts program. And again, Fran, happy National Muffin Day to you. I saw your post this morning, and your muffins looked absolutely delicious. So Fran's question is about swapping out different dried fruits for fruit paste. So You can use apricots, as she has mentioned. I have two that I really like to use. One of them is I enjoy an unsweetened mango that's dried. And what I do with it is I will cut them into smaller pieces and then proceed the same way that you would if you were making any other kind of fruit paste and letting it soak in water. These are delicious. They have a little tartness to them. So if you're making a salad dressing, the tartness is good. And then there's also the color effect of using the beautifully yellow mangoes. And then the other thing is I like to use these cranberries. They have 50% less sugar in them. So the interesting thing about um, uh, dried fruit, a lot of it, especially cranberries, is that they are coated with an oil and then they have sugar added to them. And sometimes the sugar is not a vegan sugar. So I'm often skeptical of cranberries. However, if you go to a place like Whole Foods, they do have unsweetened cranberries. They are beyond tart, but they do kind of give you that tartness that you might be looking for. But they're very, very tart. I like these 50% less sugar. Um, Still has a little bit of oil in it, but there's 0 grams of total fat in the recipe. So that should be something helpful. So, Fran, I know that you and I also are both big fans of the dried plum. However, we prefer calling it the prune. And prunes also make a wonderful, wonderful fruit paste for a dressing or a baked item or whichever. So I think that that is a good thing. Thanks so much for your question, Fran. Fran and I are often incommunicado with one another because she is the chairperson of the membership committee for Les Dames d'Escoffier of the Philadelphia chapter, and I am on her committee. So we have a lot of fun working together. If there are any female chefs here today, my suggestion is that if you have been working for more than 5 years in this industry, in whatever facet it might be, you might want to look into membership of Les Dames, which is a 501c3 not-for-profit philanthropic organization. So anyway, Fran's my boss at Les Dames. Okay, this is from Janet B. Hello, Janet. How are you today? Oh, this is sweet. I recently read Woman Warrior and saw your name in the acknowledgments. Well, I don't get any congratulations. I've known the Esselstyns, as you know, for many, many years and was really honored when Jane and Anne asked me to sort of chronicle my path into the plant-based Whole Foods arena. And I'm honored to know them and am grateful to know them because sometimes I'll say to Anne, if I didn't know you, I probably would be like, I don't know, not as healthy as I am, but I love their work and I'm super big fans. So thank you so much for that. That's very nice of you, Janet. Oh, this is from Mitch. I know Mitch very well. Mitch is a current student, and I'm not sure why my screen keeps going off, but there we go again. It's not exactly in front of me. So Mitch had a really good question. Well, all questions are good. But Mitch's question was specifically about broccoli and cauliflower and using them in stocks, and why do they render a bitter taste? And they do render a slight bitter taste, but not as much as dandelions or mustard greens. And that's because of glucosinates that are in the broccoli and those cruciferous vegetables. I still use them to make stock because when you compare to the power of an onion and a carrot and a celery and maybe a leftover uh, stalk from broccoli or cauliflower or whichever, it certainly isn't going to render a totally bitter. Um, Pardon my dog. That means that the mailman, postal worker, is here. Sorry about that. Um, the other thing is that if you think that it renders that bitter flavor, you could think about using a little bit less of those greens and such in your, whatever it is that you're making. So that should be pretty helpful to you. And Mitch, I think I was sharing with someone before that you're a current student, and it's always a joy to read your work and your enthusiasm. So keep up the great work. And he also has a question about low sodium. Let me jump on this for a second. So a couple of things I'm going to say about that. If you remember early on in your studies, you had that lemon assignment, and remember that lemon and salt, that their flavor responses are on the same side of your tongue. So I like to layer up with lemon. Nowadays, Sanji, low sodium tamari comes in 25% off, 50% off. It still carries sodium. There's about 700 milligrams of sodium in a tablespoon. But remember that a teaspoon of table salt contains about 2,100 milligrams. So here's some low sodium tamari, which is good. Much lower in sodium. Next is going to be Bragg's aminos, which also work very well, and only carry 140 milligrams per teaspoon. So remember that salt is an acquired taste. And I have often seen people who start out really loving salt and then will use as many milligrams in soy sauce to get that flavor, when in reality you're still going over 2,100 milligrams of sodium a day as prescribed by the World Health Organization. So I say more spices, more lemon, and also just sort of walk away slowly every day backwards from that salt. And it's funny because sometimes if we go out to eat or something, I will have to send something back because to me it tastes terribly salty. And my husband will taste it and say, "Oh, it tastes great to me." So it's an acquired taste and you can unravel it. So I hope that those are helpful to you, and keep up the good work, Mitch. Very, very good. This is from Lily B, who asks if there are any suggestions how to dry freeze cranberries and blueberry powder. Um, I would put them in an airtight container, and I would, before I even cover the top, I would use a piece of either parchment paper or wax paper, or if you like to use plastic wrap, so that it doesn't get freezer burn. So I would dig it into that. Um, I have some fruit powder. I just keep it in the refrigerator because I use it on a more regular basis. But your freezer is good. Prevent freezer burn. Date it, name it, so that after 5 to 6 months, if you're doing an excursion in your freezer wanting to know what something is, that you have an idea about that blueberry powder or whatever. So this next question was a very interesting one. I love Montreal. I have many relatives in Montreal. Um, so you'll find in the link that we have put on, Linda, the link for Arden Mills Flour and Grain. It is a Montreal-based company that makes a plethora of different flours for you to look at. And then the other part about it is that if you're having difficulty finding that flour, you can make your own by using 489 grams of bread flour, adding to it 11 grams of vital wheat gluten, which we use to make seitan. And you would want to blend those flours well together, and you will yield a 14% protein flour that you will make your own. It's what they use in Europe to make those beautiful baguettes and ciabattas that just are so delicious and just delicious. So you've got that information, but I know that we have put up the Arden Mills link for you, and I think you'll find that very, very helpful. And let's see. This is from Elizabeth. Is my husband plant-based? Mine is, or totally on board, so I sometimes fix 2 dishes. Well, I'll tell you a funny story. Um, in 2009, when I first went plant-based, um, I would make dinner for me. And I was telling the story to Ann Esselstyn, and the story went like this. So then I'll make the same thing for the both of us, but I'll put a bowl of cheese on the table for him. And she was like, "Why are you putting cheese on the table? It's not a good thing to do." And so I'm not a short order cook. We don't live in a restaurant. My husband is not plant based. However, he loves everything that I make. And if he is wanting to have an animal protein, um, we have designated pots because that's how I have evolved in my life as someone who is plant based. Um, but yeah, it works for us, and he likes what I eat, and we're both really healthy. And I think I'm just thinking out loud for you. You know, starting out with Meatless Monday is always a great way to introduce everyone in your family to a no meat diet. And then what happens is that someone will say, "Hey, can you make that such and such again?" And then you go and make it, and you help to build new habits and not have your own dietary values become a wedge in friendships or anything else like that. So, anyway, that's my Oprah talk about when everyone in your family isn't plant based. So, Mitch, I already answered your low sodium question, and I answered the cruciferous vegetable question. And I'm just thinking out loud about um, cream of cauliflower soup, plant based, of course, or cream of broccoli soup, of course, and how they have never tasted bitter to me. So just remember that your mirepoix is the strong hitter, is the home run hitter in your kitchen. So adding those to whatever you make will certainly be a really, really good thing. And this is from Holly, and Holly's question is she's contemplating buying enamel Dutch oven from Merton and Stork, which is lighter, I guess lighter than Le Creuset or other brands mentioned. I'm wondering, is it really worth it? Thoughts? Well, um, I love to go to thrift shops. So some of my cast iron pots, which are Le Creuset, are from a thrift shop. And years ago, it was much easier to find them because not everybody was using Le Creuset. Um, I think that I would look for a sale, that I would try the pan or pot out. And today, everything in the world is returnable. So if you don't like it or it doesn't meet your cooking style, you could easily then return it. I find it easy. They're very easy to clean, which I really, really love. And it's really funny. The other night, a student had written how easy the kitchen cleanup was after doing the no oil saute for the mushroom dish that we have. And when I first became plant based, I started dating the bottom of the dish soap because it lasted for such a long time because kitchen cleanup is so easy, but particularly enamel pots. So I say buy one pot or a little one or whatever and see what works best for you, and see how it goes. Yeah, I will say, if for those of you who live in this corridor or up the east coast of the United States, Lidl, which is a German grocery store, has very, very good cast iron pots and pans that are um, quote, quote, knockoffs of the real things, and they cook beautifully and work just as well. So, um, that was a very good question. So next, this is a great question about somebody who is making their own plant-based nut milks. And I wanted to share with you the easiest nut milk that I know, which consists of using something like a Ninja. This is by the people who make Yonanas. It's $20. It's called the Yonana mini blender or whatever. I have a date that is soaking in water. And here I have some almond butter, and I've covered it with a dish towel because I wanted to remove some extra oil. So there is that. And then let me move over here and say that I made a cup and a half of beautiful, beautiful almond milk. I make it in small batches. You can keep it in the fridge. It tastes delicious. After you finish using it in the blender, you might want to put it through a double mesh strainer because you can remove some of the residual of the dates. Because remember, not everybody has a Vitamix, and that nut butter has been ground beautifully. And I would drink it for you on air, but I don't think that's a good thing to do. So, um, if I don't know why the almond wasn't successful. One of the important things about almond is after you soak them, it's really good to take the skin off. So I don't know if that's what your situation was, but when I do use fresh almonds, I always make sure that the skin is not on them. But you've got to try the nut butter. It works really, really well. And here's the funny thing: this cup of water makes 12 ounces of almond milk. So I don't know how that happens, but it's creamy and delicious and smooth. So you might want to try that. Um, I think the walnut, you can also buy, walnut butter so that if you don't want to have to put the wear and tear on your blender or whatever, and you'll still get your omega 3s that way. So it sounds like you're doing well with that. So it's a great way to save money. Almond milk in some parts of the country is $4 or $5 for 64 ounces. Um, or almost 2000 cc's. So you may want to think about making your own. And it sounds, Cynthia, that you have found the magic recipe for doing that. So that is very, very good. Um, this is from Jane B. Hi, Jane. She likes toasting nuts on the stove, but she's concerned about the negative health benefits of doing so. Can you speak to this? Um, I don't toast nuts. I like to eat them raw, and I really can't answer that specifically for you. I've been making my own granola without any kind of sweetener. I've been using applesauce and orange juice as the sweetener, and the nuts cook in the oven, but I don't toast nuts generally. So you may want to check with a dietitian or maybe read up about that. And if I find anything, we will post it here or we can post it on our Facebook page. And by the way, Facebook has three plots for Rouxbe. There's Rouxbe Plant Pro, there's Rouxbe Forks Over Knives, and then there is the Professional Pro Cook, which is a fascinating, fascinating program. And so I will post that there. I will find the right article or speak to the right person for you. Very good question, Jane. Like that a lot. Again, here is Holly D, who's also looking to lower her sodium and and she wants to make her own sauces. Um, whoa, sorry, I'm reading these off from my iPad. I think that we'll go back to the lemon. We'll go back to making our own sauces. We'll go back from maybe starting out with some Bragg's coconut aminos, which work very well. Maybe go to a 50% of the tamari. Um, Again, it's all a process. If you knew me 15 years ago before I was plant based, I would be jonesing for salt. So uh, make food that's tasty, use herbs, use lots of spices. I also find, and this is just an interesting observation for myself, that the fresher the food, the better it tastes. So I will treat myself to a farmer's market on the weekend and cook wisely and cook smart, and also take advantage of my freezer and try not eating out as much because the reason why food generally tastes good when you eat out is because there's a ton of sodium in that food. So we have another question from Cynthia. From Cynthia, let's see. This is from Regina. I'm sorry, asking about what flavor jam I like. It's whatever I have in the house. So, generally speaking, I prefer using a fruit conserve, which has no sugar in it, and using a low sodium tomato paste, and it makes a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ketchup. You can also put it in a blender if you want to have a really smooth one. If you have young children, they don't want to see particles of fruit floating around their ketchup when you make them a carrot dog. So there's that. So whatever your favorite is, everything works. Everything, whether it's orange marmalade or it's a fruit conserve, I would avoid commercial things that come in fancy bottles that you squeeze and things like that. So um, this is from Heather. Heather's question is about applesauce. You know, I always buy the smallest jar of applesauce. So I think it is a 16-ounce jar and it has 2 cups of applesauce in it. So for cooking, if I'm making muffins or waffles or pancakes or whatever, I would use about a cup, and I'll date it with a Sharpie. And if it's coming up on its near end date, which is about 5 days in the fridge, I'll just eat the applesauce myself as a dessert or a snack or something like that. So the refrigerator usually has a 5-day shelf life for anything that you have opened. So that's the general Rouxbe rule of thumb. Eating a whole food plant-based diet, Janet asks, omega-3s, you're going to find omega-3s in flax meal, you're going to find them in chia seeds, you're going to find them in walnuts. So those are pretty good resources. And also, you may be at the grocery store and you may see, oh, look at this orange juice that has omega-3 in it. Well, unfortunately, that omega-3 is fish-based. So you may want to just be aware of that. I use flaxseed meal every day in my oats. Um, I like the flavor of it. It's nutty. You've got to use the ground flax meal for proper absorption because the seeds do not break down. So that's just my area of that. Ingrid has a question. Hi, Ingrid. We haven't seen you here for a while. She has a question about iron skillets, and there's one that has walls and another one almost flat. Does this matter? Is it worth buying the ones with the grill pattern? Oh, I have the grill pattern one, and I absolutely love it for grilling eggplant. I love it for the Brussels sprouts assignment, which is one of my favorite all times. And I love, I'll heat the pan first and then put the Brussels sprouts in so that there's a little extra heat and sizzle for that. But yes, the grill pan, it's about 10 inches by 10 inches, works perfectly. Black & Decker makes a wonderful, wonderful model. You can find it at places like TJ Maxx or Target for $20. So if you want to try that, I would definitely suggest an outing to Target, but only to the housewares department, because you know what happens when you go to Target. You kind of get distracted by everything that's there. So that would be my suggestion. This is from Jane B. She has a question about a silicone mat and a dehydrator. My dehydrator comes with these sheets. Um, and I haven't used my dehydrator in a really long time. I use parchment paper lots of times, so you can either just sit it flat on that meshy grill, use the sheets that Excalibur provides for you, or use parchment paper. And it's interesting, when I was a student at Rouxbe, I bought an inexpensive dehydrator that took for days and days and days to make dehydrated crackers and things like that. And then I saw an ad on Facebook for an Excalibur, and I paid $100 for it. It's a has 5 shelves in it, and I never use it. So my sense is keeping your oven on as low as a temperature as can be. certainly helps to also develop really nice dehydrated foods. So that's just my question about that. So um, this is from Sandra A., who wants to know some examples of things that I feed my husband. So, what's a really good dish to begin with is a chili, not with tofu in it, just with maybe a variety of beans, some corn, seasoned a little picante, and then serving it with a brown rice and either a guacamole or some sliced avocado. Um, Pasta is another good one, and I'm trying to see. I've been making my own quote quote Parmesan, and it is, of course, nutritional yeast. It's whole wheat panko breadcrumbs, garlic powder, and yeah, that's it. And mix, mix, mix. And when you put it on top of pasta, it gives the same texture as a grated Parmesan Reggiano would or whatever. Italian food and Mexican food are very easy to work with. Scour the internet. There's a really good site on Facebook. It's called Fat Free Air Fryer. And there are some wonderful, wonderful recipes that are provided on that site. So you might like that. Jane B is asking about oil for the ganache cake. I think that if I'm not mistaken, it recommends a coconut oil. That would best be a question for Chef Fran, who is our go to expert for all things related to any kind of desserts. So I believe that when I was a student at Rouxbe 9 years ago, every time I did an assignment, and I've shared this with you before, I had a big disclaimer at the top of my final, the part three where you talk about what you made. There is no oil in this dessert, or there was no oil used to make this, whatever. So sometimes I take the mentality of, whoops, I forgot to put in my own head. I didn't see a difference in the ganache. I think I may have frozen it a little bit longer, but again, that would be a really good question to ask Chef Fran. Uh, oh, this is from Laura C. She wants to know how my yogurt making is going. You know, it's going rather well. I just finished 8 little 6-ounce cups. I have to improve it a little bit. The texture was good on some and not good on others. I think I might go back to using my oven. I also want to experiment with the warm function on my rice cooker. So I'll keep you posted. A very, very good question. Um, let's see. I just want to see how we're doing with time here. We're great on time, and I'll stay here for as long as you want to stay here with me. Um, Cynthia has asked about the mushroom assignment, which is my favorite assignment, by the way. Um, she's not done well with mushrooms, either burning them in the pan or too wet and not tasting very, very good. So, what I love about this assignment is the underscore of the importance of your mise en place is what really makes this assignment work. It's kind of like the next ingredient, aside from the minced shallots and chives and your mushrooms, and whether you're using vegetable broth or a wine or a cooking wine or whatever, because it moves so quickly. And I also find that having a stainless steel pan and doing the mercury water bowl test is the most important thing. And then two more things. One is that it's really important for the mushrooms to be of the same size. And if you are buying pre-sliced mushrooms in your produce department, we don't know when they were picked, we don't know when they were sliced, but if they are starting to look a little brown and maybe a little dehydrated, your mushrooms are not going to taste good. So I suggest baby bellas, slicing them equally, and then following that assignment to the letter, and you will have the most delicious um, mushrooms. I use a little extra garlic just because I like garlic. And also, do not use garlic, granulated garlic, or garlic powder because it burns immediately in the pan. So I have seen where Some students have used that instead. And also, I also notice sometimes in the mise en place a jar of minced um, garlic from the store. Flavor's gone. You're not going to get that zing zing that you get from using fresh garlic. So remember also that garlic is a very low moisture vegetable, so that's why it's going to burn quickly. So make sure it's minced well, and then make sure that you put it in the order that it's supposed to go. It's my favorite assignment, believe it or not. I love when the cue comes up and it's like, oh yeah, I have 10 mushroom assignments tonight. So that's always so great. And Amy M, and I think that might be Amy Mackey, who is a dear friend of mine, and we've known each other for as long as we have both been plant based. Um, if you're talking about Jane's book or if you're talking about Bryant's book, they're both wonderful and delicious books. Some of you may know Amy. She is with the Plant Strong crowd, formerly known as Engine 2, and a dear, dear friend. So, hey, Amy, it's good to see you here today. We've got the information for the Black History Months, and I think that we are sadly coming to an end. This has been a ton of fun. I always enjoy meeting with all of you. Uh, I love seeing your assignments. I love seeing the progress that all of you show with your assignments. It's so wonderful to see. My last assignment driven comment is that that last photo is sort of like your opportunity to provide us with the ruby in the crown, so to speak. So if it says to take the photo at an angle so that we can see the sides of your ganache tart, ganache tort rather, excuse me, or your pumpkin pie or an apple pie or whatever, it's crucial because we have big screens and we enlarge them a lot and we look at every nook and cranny. And the other thing is back to the mise en place picture. If you've got a gigantic mise en place and I'm seeing your dining room in the photo, I really would love for you to take your camera and do what's called a flat lay, a square or rectangle photo. And this way that we can see everything. Because, last comment, my next favorite recipe is the tunaless salad. I absolutely love that recipe. It's my favorite. And I'll look at the mise en place and I'll think, oh, um, shallots are missing, or oh my gosh, the shallots are cut way too big, or such and such is missing. So the photos really, really are important when you are an online learner and you are an online instructor. The photo is sort of like the way for us to know best your work. So, with that said, um, I think that you need this book for Heart Health Month, and we'll go back to Brian Terry. This is a wonderful book. Thank you so much to all of you for your wonderful questions. Thank you very much to Patrick, today's producer, who helps me in so many ways and just a wonderful colleague. And I'll see you next month during, I think it's Women's Month next month. So take good care. Signing off from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, I am Char Nolan. Have a great day.